Now, the court's 3 liberal justices argued that it was the court that was overreaching by using its own opinions over that of healthcare experts. All right, this one's an interesting one. It affects a lot of people. As you heard, about 80 million folks. And I'm sure if any of you work for bigger companies, you've had to deal with it as well. So I'd like to welcome my special guest, constitutional lawyer and civil life litigator Andrew Lieb. Andrew, thank you so much for taking out the time to be with me this evening. And first and foremost, I want to get your reaction to this court's ruling. This one's a big one.
Michael, I think first and foremost, the interesting part is how long it took the court to make the decision. There was talks by Justice Alito about an administrative stay. And what we found, and why is that so interesting, OSHA's mandate went into effect for big businesses on Monday. So many companies had already been implementing this mandate. And I find that interesting because so many clients and the public at large think that you can march into court and slam your hand down on the judge's desk like you're Jack McCoy and get an immediate ruling. But that just doesn't happen that way in real life. They rule when they want to rule, Michael.
Well, was that calculated? Are you suggesting that somehow there was maybe some kind of compromise struck in this instance? Do you think they work on that level as well?
I could certainly see that happening because the opinion was very clear to say that they're not judging the validity of vaccinations. They went out of their way to say that over and over and over again. And Michael, what struck me the most about, and we're talking about the OSHA opinion first, about big businesses, is they actually said the reason they're striking it down is it was applied in an indiscriminate way. And they even suggested that OSHA, not just Congress, but OSHA had the power to make a vaccine mandate if they tailored it to, for example, scientists who are working on COVID or to working on places, people working in confined spaces. So they gave a route for OSHA to make a new emergency temporary standard that's applied very specifically. And I thought that was interesting as well.
Yeah, and that was going to be my next question there. The idea that there was, when I read it, as you said, there seemed to be some room for a response by the Biden administration that could meet their requirements.
They used that language, Michael. They said in the opinion, and we're talking about the 6-3 conservative to liberal opinion. The conservatives wrote this. They write that you could do it if you did it, and they did not want to rule that out. And I think it's also telling you can't read this opinion on its own. You have to read it also when you read the healthcare one, which was a 5-4 opinion where Roberts and Kavanaugh moved over. And Roberts and Kavanaugh, we don't know who wrote either of these opinions, as they were just written unsigned. But what they wrote on the bottom of that opinion is they basically said is that just because of a pandemic, we're not going to grant a federal agency power which they didn't have. But we're also not going to take away power which a federal agency did have. And there's been a lot of discourse of whether a federal agency or the U.S. Congress could have this power. To make it crystal clear, the opinion says to me this was a separations of power decision, not a supremacy, not a states' rights, not a clause about constitutionality. It's clearly constitutional, they say. The power rests with the states and the Congress. So that means that, number one, OSHA could make a more tailored approach, or the U.S. Congress could give OSHA more power.
I'm glad you said that because this has been hailed by a lot of people as a states' rights victory, smaller government, keeping the government in check. So I'm absolutely glad you say that, and I do agree with you. Here's the most important question. What effect is it going to have on our daily lives, do you think?
Well, it's going to have a big effect for anyone who's getting treatment in a Medicare or Medicaid recipient, because in those places, every healthcare worker, except for people that are fully remote or qualify for an exemption, an accommodation it's called, based on religious needs or based on disability needs, they're going to be vaccinated. So those are going to be much safer places, and they made that into the statement. And I want to loop back, Michael, to how we started this conversation. The fact that they waited till Thursday, midday on Thursday, to issue this opinion when it went into effect on Monday made a vast smorgasbord, a vast amount of people. Of this amount of people, we have 80 million workers. They were already impacted by this because their employers had to enact something already. So I think it's going to increase the vaccination rates, and hopefully together we can learn that the federal government does have power to make vaccine mandates, and that's important for a states versus federal rights discussion.
All right, great stuff, Andrew Lieb. Truly appreciate you joining me. Fantastic insights. You have a great evening. I want to let you go now. Randy Kessler is going to be standing by as we move ahead in this hour.